Hi, I'm Chris Parrish with Nightingale Game Calls. I've been fortunate enough to win 9 Grand National Championships, 9 World Championships, and 3 U.S. Open Championships, and many others in my life in turkey calling. And I'm here to tell you the 10 most common mistakes turkey hunters make. Number 1 is not practicing enough. Think about it. You're using basically a musical instrument calling these turkeys. You can't expect yourself to pick that call up 1 or 2 weeks before the season, be proficient enough and efficient enough and confident enough to actually use that call to call in a turkey. Practice all year long by listening to real turkeys and get very comfortable with your calls, learn new calls. You'll be a more efficient hunter. Mistake number 2, not doing the proper job of scouting, especially in a new area. You know, if we've hunted the place over and over again, sometimes you can get by without doing a lot of scouting. However, your numbers change on turkeys, and terrain features change oftentimes due to farming practices or mowing practices or maybe even CRP coming into effect. Keep in tune with the areas that you hunt and new areas. Scout them properly. Know exactly what's going on in the areas turkeys like to frequent. They change throughout the spring. Early spring, they're doing one thing. Late spring, they're doing another thing, all because of where that hen's going and nesting. Keep track of that. You'll put yourself in the right place on a consistent basis. That's number 2. Number 3, the biggest number 3 mistake that I find turkey hunters making is just not knowing their equipment thoroughly. Meaning not knowing their shotgun, not knowing their choke, not knowing the capability of that gun, not being totally in focus with all of their equipment, making sure that we got, their head nets, their gloves. You get out there and you're totally inefficient. You're not going to be efficient in the woods. You're not going to be successful. Make sure you really keep track of all your equipment, keep it in good working condition, know it thoroughly. You'll be more efficient with your hunting and more efficient on making sure that your shot is executed correctly. Biggest mistake number 4, not taking care of your calls properly. Your shotgun's important, your hunting equipment's important, having all the proper stuff is important, but your calls are very important, especially mouth calls. Mouth calls change throughout the year, meaning when you buy them one year, they typically aren't as good the beginning of the next year as they are when you bought them, simply because of use, wear and tear, saliva on them. They're just going to go bad. Keep your calls in condition, buy new calls, keep them washed off, keep them picked, keep them in the refrigerator if they're mouth calls, keep your friction calls sanded, your strikers sanded, keep them in perfect working condition because they'll work better for you. You'll call in more turkeys. So mistake number 5, in my personal opinion, would be just the lack of knowledge on how turkeys communicate with one another during certain times of the year. Meaning, through the breeding cycle in the spring, you're going to have 4 or 5 periods, just like the rut is with whitetails. Most hunters don't understand there's a beginning stage, there's a middle stage, there's an ending stage, and finally the final stage, the breeding cycle. You need to keep yourself in tune with that and where those turkeys are in that throughout the spring. It'll tell you how to call to them. It'll tell you the areas that they're going to frequent the most. It'll tell you whether those hens are ready to set and whether those gobblers are vulnerable. There's a lot of different things you can learn. So keep track of where they're at in their breeding cycle, and it'll make you a more efficient hunter.